I never thought a simple outdoor extension cord would nearly bring my entire neighborhood to meltdown. But that's the thing about living under an HOA. The smallest inconvenience to the wrong person can turn into a crisis. And for me, that person was Karen, the self-appointed queen of the block. Self-proclaimed rule enforcer and full-time busybody with too much free time. I hadn't even been living there 6 months when everything started. It all began on a sweltering Mantasy Saturday afternoon in July, heat index over 100, humidity thick enough to chew, and my garage turned woodshop running full blast. I had my fans on, my tools charging, and my smoker running for a slow-cooked brisket. It was supposed to be my one peaceful day off after working 12 straight shifts. I had my earbuds in, sanding a set of cabinet doors for a client, when I noticed something strange. The fan behind me sputtered, then died. The lights flickered once, twice, and then the whole circuit popped with a dull thud. At first I thought it was overload. I walked to the breaker panel, but everything looked fine. I stepped outside to check the extension cord. I'd run to the side outlet only to see something that made my jaw clench. Karen, standing in the middle of my yard, hands on hips, her little dog peeing on my toolbox, and my extension cord unplugged from the wall. She had coiled the cord like she was repossessing property. Karen. I shouted over the ringing in my ears, "Why are you touching my stuff?" She didn't even pretend to be embarrassed. "You were causing power fluctuations across the whole block," she said, waving the extension cord like a lasso. "As HOA safety chair, I have the authority to prevent hazardous energy usage." I laughed out loud. "By unplugging my cord?" "Yes," she snapped. "We can't have you burning down the neighborhood." I took a slow step forward, keeping my voice calm even though I wanted to yell. "Karen, that cord is plugged into my outlet. My house. My bill. My equipment. You can't touch it." She folded her arms. "Oh, I can." And I did. "You're welcome." She dropped the cord in front of me like a dead snake, turned away, and marched back toward her property line. Her dog barking triumphantly like he helped win a war. That should have been the end of it. I figured she was just on one of her typical power trips and left it alone. I plugged everything back in, reset the breaker, and got back to work. What I didn't know was that my electricity had become her personal resource for months that night. Around 10 p.m., I stepped outside to put away my tools. And I saw something weird. My side outlet was still warm. Not warm from earlier. Warm like it had been in use recently. I crouched down and grabbed the plug. Still warm. Warmer than normal. That didn't make sense. I hadn't used anything since the afternoon. I checked my camera. At 8:45 p.m., when the sun dipped behind the houses, there she was. Karen, walking over casually as if checking her garden hose. She carried a thick extension cord in her hand. She plugged it into my outlet, walked back to her house, and this part made me pause, disappeared into her backyard shed, and suddenly things clicked. The odd spikes on my electricity bill. The weird nighttime drops in my garage lights. My tools randomly resetting during the evenings. She'd been stealing my electricity. For who knows how long, the next morning, I installed a locking outlet cover. Nothing crazy, just a simple plastic case with a coated latch. Cheap, effective, and enough to prevent sticky fingers. A small step, but one that would end everything. Or so I thought. Around noon, she marched over like an enraged mall security guard. "Did you do this?" she demanded, poking the locked outlet like it offended her personally. "Yes," I said calmly. "Because you've been using my electricity." She gasped like I'd accused her of murder. "I am a respected member of this community." "Then respect my property." "Can't prove anything," she said, though her eyes darted nervously. Then she hissed under her breath, "You don't know what you've done." I didn't even respond. She stormed off, stomping hard enough that her flip-flops clapped like angry applause. I assumed she'd complained to the HOA, but apparently she had bigger ideas. At 7 p.m., as I was finishing dinner, I heard pounding on my door. Not knocking, pounding. Then a woman's voice yelling, "Open up. Emergency." I raced to the door, thinking someone was hurt. When I opened it, I found Karen red in the face, holding her phone in one hand and pointing at me with the other. Behind her stood 2 board members looking uneasy. "You need to unlock that outlet right now," she demanded. "My freezer is off." "Do you hear me off? All my food is thawing." I blinked. "Your freezer?" "Yes!" she screamed. "In my shed." "You have a freezer in your shed?" "That's not the point." "Oh, I think it's exactly the point." I crossed my arms. "Why is your freezer connected to my electricity?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the board members. "Make him unlock it. This is a community emergency. My food is going bad." One of the board members, an older guy named Thomas, rubbed his forehead. "Karen, we really can't force him to. Fine, if you won't help me." She shrieked, turning back to me. "I'll call the police. This is theft of food. It's sabotage. Sabotage of essential utilities." I tried not to laugh. "You want to call 911 and tell them your neighbor stopped letting you steal electricity?" "I am not stealing anything," she shouted, dialing the phone with dramatic fury. "I have privileges. Community privileges. As HOA safety chair, I need access to stable power during summer storms." "From my house?" I asked. She ignored me and put the phone to her ear. "Yes. 911? I need police immediately. My neighbor is endangering me and refusing to provide critical electricity during a household emergency." I stared at her. Thomas stared at her. Even the dog sitting at her feet looked embarrassed. 5 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. The officer who stepped out was Officer Grant, someone I knew from my job. He recognized me immediately. "Evening," he said with a friendly nod. "What's going on?" Karen rushed forward like she was diving onto a grenade. "Arrest him. He shut off the power to my shed and now my freezer is shutting down. I have hundreds of dollars of food in there. My son's entire lunch prep for the month." Officer Grant held up a hand. "Ma'am, is the shed on your property?" "Yes." "And the freezer is your appliance?" "Yes, and you were powering it from his wall outlet." She hesitated. Her eyes flickered. "Temporarily. For how long?" he asked, his voice steady. She crossed her arms tightly. "That's irrelevant." Grant looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "You want to explain?" I gestured to the camera above my garage. "She's been plugging into my power at night without permission for weeks." "Maybe months," Karen gasped. "That camera's illegal." "It's not," Grant replied calmly. "And even if it was, that wouldn't change the fact that you can't use someone else's electricity without permission. It's a community resource." She shouted weakly. Grant pinched the bridge of his nose the way cops do when they're trying not to yell. "Electricity is not a community resource." She started to argue again, but he cut her off. "Ma'am, calling 911 for this is misuse of emergency services. Do you understand that?" He didn't even wait for her to answer. "This is a civil matter, and frankly, you're in the wrong." Then something happened that I'll never forget. She burst into tears. Actual tears. Loud, dramatic, wailing sobs. "You don't understand," she cried. "My husband is out of town. My son left the freezer door open last week and half the food spoiled. I can't afford another full grocery trip before payday. I only plugged in over here because our outlets kept tripping. Why do you think I called 911? I'm desperate." The board members stared at the ground. Grant sighed, softening a little, but not enough to excuse her behavior. "Look," said gently, "I'm sorry about your situation, but stealing power isn't the solution. And calling 911 over a freezer definitely isn't. So, can I plug in? Just until tomorrow?" I shook my head. "No, but I'll tell you what." I grabbed a heavy-duty extension cord from my garage and handed it to her. "Plug this into your own house. It'll reach the shed." She blinked. But that means my bill goes up." "That's how electricity works," I said. Officer Grant coughed to hide a laugh. Karen took the cord like it weighed 100 pounds. She walked away, sniffling, dragging the cord behind her like a defeated warrior carrying her broken sword. I thought that was the end. It wasn't 2 days later I got an email from the HOA, a formal complaint. Not against Karen, against me. It claimed I had created a hostile environment and interfered with community resource sharing. He tried saying the outlet was common use, which was absolute nonsense. I sent them the footage. The unplugging, the nighttime stealing, the meltdown, the 911 call, everything. Silence. Then an hour later, an email from Thomas. We apologize. The complaint has been removed. Further, Karen has been temporarily removed from her position as safety chair. That evening I saw her walking her dog. She avoided eye contact at first, but then, surprisingly, she walked over. I wanted to say, "Sorry," she muttered. "I shouldn't have taken your electricity." But I nodded. "Thank you. I appreciate that." "But," she added, her voice sharpening, "you could have been a little more neighborly." I smiled. "And you could have asked." She glared for a second, then sighed. "Fair enough. We didn't become friends. Not even close. But she stopped stealing my electricity, stopped messing with my tools, and miracle of miracles, stopped calling 911 over freezer emergencies. And me? I added 2 more cameras, upgraded the outlet lock, and started keeping an eye on my bill. Because living in an HOA teaches you one thing fast. You never know which neighbor sees your house as their backup generator.